going to
Hello.
jump right in because I know you got stuff going on. So
Yeah.
we'll just dive right in, love. So why don't we do this?
Okay.
Why don't we acquaint all of the ladies listening with how you found yourself on this journey, and we'll start there.
Okay. Yes. So that's try to do a short version, not get too long, but so I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 this Thursday on Thanksgiving. So my birthday week. But anyways, met my husband when we were in our early 20s. So we were young little kids. And we're both still figuring out life. I considered we were both late bloomers. We were kind of figuring out college and like what we wanted to do. So starting a family was like way off in the horizon for us. So even like throughout our 30s, we just not on our radar. We were very career focused. My husband's a serial entrepreneur, started multiple companies. I was, trying to get my career off the ground, and we were just doing what it took to kind of make it. We live in the DC area, which is super competitive. So we were focusing on that, getting master's degrees, just kind of doing whatever it takes to kind of make it. So probably wasn't until maybe I was 35 where we thought, oh, maybe we might start thinking about a family. Then we didn't really start trying until our late 30s. So nothing really happened. Not really super surprised because we were older at that point. So then nothing happened for about a year. I think I was like 39, and my doctor said, "Why don't you go get checked out?" So we said, "Okay." So I was 40. So that's what, 2016. I was 40. Or 2017, it was early 2017, went to fertility clinic, came back completely healthy. We're both very healthy, workout, exercise, we're both thin, like eat really healthy. So they saw no red flags or anything. So basically laid out our options. You can just kind of keep trying. You can do some kind of less, minimally invasive things or go straight to IVF. Both kind of being like, we like to get our goals, meet these goals, set goals and meet them. We're like, let's go right to IVF because we were older at that point. I was 40, my husband's 38. So we jumped right into IVF. So like I said, this was 2017. So I thought, oh, we got this. Like, I had great insurance, which was another perk. It covered like 5 cycles. And we were in a spot where we could afford it. So I thought, we got this. We'll be done. I'll be pregnant in like a year, and that'll be it. So first cycle wasn't the greatest, only got like 8 eggs, went into the results, and we got no normal embryos. And it was like a shot in the gut. It was kind of like, wow, this is really happening. And up to this point, like I didn't really like, which is weird to say, I didn't feel like I'm not someone who's infertile. Like I didn't associate myself with someone. I don't know why. I think I had this thing in my mind, like a woman going through like infertility, by the time you get to IVF, infertility, like you're really desperate to have a kid and like all this. And I didn't feel like that was me. I don't know if I just was naive or so I wasn't even registering with me at that point that we were like going through infertility treatments or anything. So it's kind of it wasn't real yet. I'll say it that way. And then to kind of like jump ahead, we did another cycle. They changed the protocol, which they often do after the first one. Did a second cycle, got more eggs, which was great. And then we got 1 normal embryo. So it was like, oh, we got one, and then transferred it and failed. So I think we transferred it in early 2018. So it was like another failure. I was like, okay. And then in the summer of 2018, my mom, kind of out of the blue, she hadn't been in good health. And then she ended up passing away very unexpectedly. So 2018, we didn't do anything else. It was just kind of like, whoa, it was like a major life moment there. So then moved to 2019, we did another transfer, got pregnant, very excited, and miscarried right at the first ultrasound. It was not viable. So at this point, it was like all the failures were racking up. So I will say by the end of 2019, I was in the worst, definitely the worst place I've ever been in my life. I was consumed by fear and anxiety. we decided and got to the point in the fall, like October 2019, where I couldn't even think about doing another cycle. The thought of like going through just the physical part of this, of everything you do with IVF, I couldn't even think about doing it. Not to mention, I was just spiraling, really. And looking back, it was IVF, but it was also, I know now looking back, it was like dealing with the grief from my mom, which I hadn't really dealt with yet. So that was like all kind of coming together. And then I found you. So, I knew I had to like pull myself out. I was like in this deep spiral. I was, like I said, full of anxiety. I was losing weight. I wasn't eating right. I was just not in a good headspace. I even tried therapy. That wasn't a good fit. It wasn't what I needed. I didn't need to sit there and talk about things. I needed someone to kick me in the ass, basically. Like that's what I like, to shake me. Like, Kelly, you got to get out of this. Like I was like in such a dark place, and I was like not living my life. I was like, you get so consumed with IVF and then you just stop living. Like I stopped doing things I enjoyed. I wasn't cooking as much. I wasn't going out and enjoying. You're just almost like in a holding pattern, because that's what you are. You're constantly either getting ready for a cycle, or you're in a cycle, or you're coming out of a cycle. And it was just, I knew I had to get off that kind of conveyor belt for a little while and kind of figure out what we wanted to do. But before I found you, we were in the place where we were like trying to talk ourselves out of even moving forward with even having a baby. It was kind of like we were so devastated by so much failure. It was like, oh, we don't even want to do this anymore. We can't kind of take this anymore. But then we really had a kind of like a come to Jesus moment where we really admitted, no, we really do want this, but it's really hard. And what are we going to do? So we decided, well, we weren't ready to give up on the IVF yet. It was just, I think, I know everybody has their point where you're like, I'm either at a breaking point where I'm going to go forward or I'm not. And we just weren't ready to give up on that yet. So we decided we're going to go forward. And then when I said I found you, I was kind of researching. I knew I needed to find something to fix my mind, my head. I knew I had to find that. And I stumbled upon you somehow. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed. I started listening to your podcast. And you just we're speaking my language, exactly how just everything, your kind of, I guess your approach, where you have this amazing, it's kind of a mix of like kicking you in the face, in the ass, but also like empowering at the same time. So that's when it was November 2019 when I reached out to you, and then that's when I started your program. So it was like November 2019 through January of 2020. So we knew we were going to move forward with IVF. Came out of your program in January. It was probably, one of the best things I've ever done in my life. It was really scary going through your program, I'll say, because you make you face your fears head on. But it's like empowering, everything, inspirational. Hearing the other women every week that was like the highlight. It was just to hear, even if you're not even going through the exact same thing, you a lot of times have the same saboteurs, as you call them, or fears. Mm-hmm. It was just like you connect with these women, and every week I'd hoping to see some of the same women, so I could find out like, oh my God, like what's going on with them. Did they kind of get through the problem they were facing? So that was incredible. And then you kind of have to put it in practice on your own, and it is a little scary coming out. But I will say it gave me what I needed. It gave me this like structure where I started getting up at the same time every day, like started working out every morning. Then I journal and meditate, and it like gave me this structure to go through my every day. And then the tools, I will say, to like combat all those negative thoughts that you're constantly coming at you every day. Mine, was being in my almost mid 40s at that time. The ticking clock was like, time was like my biggest saboteur. It was like, always felt like time was running out. That, and then I always thought people thought I was crazy. Like, oh my God, she's still going through this. Isn't she going to give up already? And I always thought, every time I'd see, like, especially someone who knew about it, like they'd see me a year later, like someone at work, and be like, oh my God, she's not pregnant yet. Like that's always was going through my head. But with working with you and your program, you do push past that. It's really hard. Every day I'd get up and go for my walk and I'd listen to your podcast, and it would like give me the strength to like keep going. And because it's hard when it's like the unknown, you just don't know what's going to happen. And like I said, this was by the time I got out of your program, it was January 2020. And of course we're like, okay, we're going to move forward with more IVF. And then COVID hit and my clinic closed down. So that was like, and that was a real test of the ticking clock, because it was like, oh my God, like we finally got to this great place, and then everything shuts down and you can't do anything. But and in the same time, we were also decided to move. So we moved right when COVID hit, like in April. So a couple months after I got out of your program, we built a new house. But that was part of a lesson I got out of your program too, was I remember you told a story about a woman who kept like living her life and achieving all her goals while she was trying to have her baby. And then she had her baby and she had this great life that she had set up for herself. And that was part of our mindset when we decided to move and build a house. And we're thinking, are we nuts to be doing this? Like we have so much going on. And then we said, no, we got to, like Rosanne says, you got to keep forward and live your life basically, and like go after your dreams. And we both kind of just doubled down in 2020, even through COVID. Our careers like took off. My husband like built out a company, which he just sold. I like took on, more responsibility at work. And it just like, it really like helped us sail through that part of our journey. Because like I said, everything closed down. Then my clinic did reopen in like May, and we did do 2 more cycles, knowing that we likely weren't going to get the results. It wasn't surprising. We didn't get any embryos. I'm a good egg producer. It's just obviously quality was an issue at that point. So it wasn't super surprising. Still hard. It's very hard to kind of like come to that realization that kind of, you have to close, not have to, we decided to close that book. But I think also going through your program, we had already had these conversations about like, what do we really want, which is super important. I think any woman going on this journey, you have to like, what do you really want? I know for me, it was like, I really wanted to be pregnant. That was like an experience I didn't want to give up on. So that kind of led us, then we knew like what were we going to do next? So when we kind of closed the book on IVF with my eggs, we knew that donor egg IVF was our next option. So this is like, by this time, it's like August, September 2020. So we jumped right into donor egg IVF. It was a little weird in the beginning, I will say. Anybody who hasn't gone through it or experienced it, it's kind of bizarre. You're like shopping for someone to give you eggs. But once you kind of get over that, it was like then it got exciting. And then so by December we had a donor. It took us about 2 months. And then she cycled in February of 2021, February, March, I think. And it was a completely different experience, because it was like, I wasn't going through the IVF. I didn't have to go through all the pain, the physical pain. And then it was to actually get good news at each step. If anybody familiar with IVF, you have so many steps, the retrieval and then fertilization and then embryos. And we had never really gone that far. We only, got 1 embryo. So it was like super exciting to like, oh my God, we actually ended up with 9 embryos, we had never gotten numbers like that. So it was very successful. It was pretty painless. So then at that point, it was in our hands of what to, do the transfer, which we did in August of 2021. And then we just had our baby girl in April. So we got pregnant off the first transfer, and it was, a whirlwind. So it was 5 years, I guess, our journey. But yeah, I will say in the beginning of when we first went to see the fertility doctor, and he mentioned all the different options, he even mentioned, adoption, and he said donor egg IVF. And I had to like control myself to not have a reaction, because I was thinking that is something out of a sci-fi movie. Like I was like, that is not something I will ever do. Never thought I'd have to do, be faced with that decision. And I would never probably gotten to that point if I hadn't gone through your program, because it was just not something, it was facing that kind of defining, what do you want? And it was like, well, I want a baby and I want to be pregnant with a baby. So it kind of makes you mentally map out what you kind of the decisions you have to make. So when you get to a fork in the road, it's like you almost have that strength to keep going because you already have thought about what the end goal is. And the end goal was a baby. So, yeah, so that's in a nutshell.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
like so many bombs you were dropping and all of that. So we're going to back up the bus a
Yeah,
little
of
bit.
course.
But I mean, I really want to kick around this idea about knowing what you want, because it is so critical. I mean, nobody believes me when I tell them, like, you know, or when I ask that intensely annoying question, what do you want?
Yeah.
Right. Because, you know, one of the ways that I think women really set themselves up to struggle on this journey beyond the already intense emotional aspects of this journey is, number one, a lack of clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
An extreme lack of clarity. But then two, the kind of self-sabotaging stories we tell because of that lack of clarity,
Yeah.
right? Like, what do you think about that? Because I just feel like what you've shared with us here is such a powerful example of that, because the way you just said it just sort of rolled off your tongue. Well, what do you want? I know I want the pregnancy experience. I mean,
Yeah.
like, so it's like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, and I think me and my husband had those conversations, especially I remember once I started your program, we kind of, I don't know if might have been one of the exercises, but it was talking about that, like, well, you know, we want to, we want a baby. And then it's, you know, if you want a baby, then it's like, well, there's so many options of ways of getting that. Cause believe me, like getting off the IVF train, it's like, you'll do anything to get off that train when it's not happening for you. So you really do have to be clear, because obviously you could go there's adoption route, there's fostering, there's so many wonderful options. But to be, like I said, to me, I really wanted to be pregnant. That was just like, I always kind of, it wasn't like I dreamt of being pregnant. It's just, I wanted that experience of just being pregnant, of having a baby bump and like, buying maternity clothes and just all that. And that was so important to me. So that when that's something you really, really want, then you have to open yourself up to options you would have not considered before. And for us, that was donor egg IVF.
Right.
I think if maybe being pregnant wasn't as important to me, maybe we would have looked at other options, but that was just something super important to me. And like you said, if you don't sit and have that, like really think about what you want, like then maybe you stay doing something. Like maybe I would have kept doing IVF over and over and over again, because I thought, well, I have to have a baby with my eggs. I can't have, that's the only option for me. But like I said, then you really ask yourself, well, it's not that important. It's really, I want to experience pregnancy and be a mother. Does it really matter? Is it really that important to you that it's your DNA?
Right.
And then just myself doing research about that, donor, and doing a lot of reading about it. It's like, you realize that's really that's not what's important to you. It's not the genetic component that's important. That wasn't,
Right.
I realized right off the bat, like that doesn't matter, even though you seemed really, you're heartbroken. But by the time we got to that point, it's like, I really wasn't that devastated as I thought I would have been, to have to kind of give up on my own eggs. It was kind of like, no, I have this other option that will get me what I want, which is to be pregnant and have a baby. So.
Right. Well, and it's also, I think this served you really well in the conversation, because early on you were saying, you guys ended up having a conversation that maybe we don't want kids. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, had that fear, had that
Mm-hmm.
beat down? Because like, I really think that on this journey there is a fork in the road, as you were saying. There is a choice that you're making, a pivot point where you either
Mm-hmm.
pivot toward the goal or you pivot completely away from the goal and like
Yep.
don't
Yeah.
achieve it. And for everyone, that pivot point is going to be different. But think about how much different, or how differently you approach this, having worked on your mindset ahead of time.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine?
Oh yeah. I still remember that day, like sitting, and my husband, he's very honest. He was just so worried. He's like, I wanted my wife back. He had lost me to the IVF roller coaster. Um, I was like a shell of myself. And he he said, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Kind of, I was like, oh my God, this, and I thought, well, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this IVF anymore. And then was convinced, we literally sat there and we're convincing ourselves why we shouldn't have a kid. Oh, we're too old. What if something happens and then, the baby, God forbid, the baby wasn't healthy. It'll be, devastating. All these things. We now, if we don't have kids, we can free ourselves up to do other stuff in life, travel. We don't even like to travel. And here we're talking about how we're going to travel. I mean, we're really trying to like justify this decision. And I remember the next day I was just, couldn't get it out of my mind. It was like I was consumed with that because I thought, oh my God, we made this decision and it was not sitting well with me. And I kept bringing it back up. And then we got in this huge kind of emotional argument because he's like, we made this decision. And I'm like, well, I'm not on board. Basically, like, no, I don't think I'm on board. And I remember we went for a walk and we just kept talking and he sat down and just, burst into tears and says, he goes, I really do want a family. He's like, I'm just terrified. And he's like, I just couldn't take it was just getting so hard, So, and then it's like, well, how, what if we just keep going? Like we have, I think at that point we had 2 more cycles left in our insurance. And even though it's the weirdest at an arbitrary number, it's like, well, let's just exhaust this and we'll see where we are. And it just kind of felt like we weren't done. I know for me, even though it's so physically hard to go through it, I didn't feel done with IVF yet. It's kind of like you almost have to give your eggs a chance. It's like I didn't feel like I had given myself enough chances yet. So yeah, so that day we just said, okay, we're gonna go forward. And then that was right before I found you in your program. And so I was already committed to going forward. And it was just like I just needed the tools to get there. Because I knew my mind was, it was like I was sabotaging myself, as you like to say.
Like we all do. And
Yeah.
I think also interesting, Kelly, was knowing your own heart and being able to hear truth. You knew you weren't done.
Mm-hmm.
It also seems to me that had to play a role in you moving into the donor conversation, because I think there's a lot of stigma and a lot of really, it's a lack of information and that we run around with, which causes us to judge a scenario, which is like, I mean, we don't know what we're talking about. We get really possessive over our own DNA and like really tell all kinds of bizarre stories that people will know, and as if anyone actually cares. And if they do, why would you have those people in your circle, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would love it because of your unique perspective and because you're so eloquent about this. Like, what was it like to make that choice? I mean, you had gone through the program, you had found all these things, out about yourself, really outed some of these stories. How did that help you in coming to the decision that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think going through your program, like it's a lot about, for me, it was accepting where I was, like, this is my path. It's not looking backwards. And even looking backwards, like, it's not like I even have regret because I didn't want kids when I was in my 30s. Like, I really didn't. I always saw myself as an older mom. So it's not, my situation wasn't that looking back and saying, oh my God, I screwed up my life. Yeah, I should have done this earlier. I didn't feel that way. So it was accepting, like, I made a choice to kind of start this journey later in life. And this is where I am. So it's really realizing that, almost not forgiving myself, but just allowing that, like, that's my reality, and accepting that's where I am. And just like how it's like, you just have to, keep the faith, or, you always call it Gus, all that. And that really resonated with me. It's like, you just have to keep moving. So I knew what my goal was. It was, to get pregnant and have a baby. So it was just, I knew the options. It was just like, keep moving forward. And I had done a lot of research on donor while we were going through our last cycle's IVF, because I kind of had a feeling that's where we were going. And I just wanted to know more about it. And the more I learned about it, the less scary it was. And like you said, I didn't know anything about it going in at all. And so I read a lot about it and was like, it didn't seem as scary as I thought it was. So kind of by the time it was to get to that decision, it was just the next logical step. And then I will say it was a little weird in the beginning. It's kind of weird. You're looking for, you're shopping, really. That's how it is. You have to kind of shop, but once you kind of get over that initial weirdness, and we did it where we went through like a service that basically did all the searching for us. So you give them your criteria, they search for you and just send you profiles, which made it a lot easier. It took the stress out of it, because looking on your own, you just don't know where to go. There's hundreds of clinics, or, donor clinics and stuff. So it really helped to have someone like basically lead us through the whole entire process. So it made it way less stressful. But I will say it almost became fun. I don't know. I think it was because I was so relieved.
It be fun. Like, who are you, Kelly, that's suddenly getting pregnant, receiving this beautiful gift from another woman, a blessing, that could possibly be fun.
Exactly. And I think it was because I wasn't the one. I was so relieved to not have to go through IVF again. It's like all this I remember we got the last cycle, got the results, and it was like, okay, we're done. We kind of shed our tears, and then it was like, we're done. I literally went and threw all my medication away, threw all the needles away, threw everything away. And I was like, I am done with this. Like, done with this. I'm not looking back. I know where we're going. And so to know that was just, I think it was very freeing for me. And then my husband actually struggled more with the donor part than I did, because for him, he was like, I want to, he had to get over the fact that he wasn't going to have a baby with me, even though we did have a baby together. It was like, not my egg, I guess. But then he got over it too, because it's like, you get through the process, and it's like I said, it was kind of fun. And like the first couple donors, like, didn't work out, like didn't end up being good options. And then it's like, when our donor came, it's like, oh my God, that's her. That's it. Like, it's like, you really do just find your person that you're meant to find.
I love that you're saying that, like, because and your energy changed even when you were describing that. Like, it's just because you are getting this wonderful gift from another woman doesn't mean that the magic ends. It is magic of its own unique quality.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It was, I remember, like I said, we had picked a donor, very young donor, and then they can get their, like, as part of kind of like a due diligence, they'll have them get their hormone levels checked. She was a first time donor, and it came back terrible. And I felt awful, because she was really young, and I was like, oh my God, I hope she doesn't have problems. And this like kind of unveiled some problems. So that was like, oh, she's not going to work out. Then it's like, oh, this person's unavailable. It's just like, you kind of go through a process. And then, like I said, we went through a service, and I remember she sent us the profile, and I was like, that's it. Like, it was just, I knew. And it was, and she was really, it's really hard to find some, you want not someone that looks like you, but someone that I wanted someone that had like the same build as me. So like kind of tall and thin, which is actually kind of hard because most people are short. But she was my height, my weight, like, didn't really look like me, but similar body type, which was what we were looking for. So it just came together. And then, like I said, seeing someone else go through IVF, because you get like the updates and like to see the success that I had never seen. It was like, I mean, it was like you're celebrating every point, and it's just like,
Yeah.
wow, this is really, real. This is really, really happening now. Like, it's really, real. And then, yeah, and then to go on a transfer, which of course, even we had been through so much at that point, and then even our transfer didn't go like super smoothly. Like, it took longer than anticipated, and we are like, oh geez, I was a nervous wreck. But to get, you're pregnant 2 weeks later was just like, oh my God. And then my pregnancy was like a dream. It was just, yeah. And I always remember you saying, it's 10,000 times better than you think it'll be. And yeah, I remember I'd be on my walk and listen to my podcast, and I'd be like, thinking like, really, Rosanne, like, I'm really trying to keep the faith here. And,
Was it?
yes, I'd say it's a million times better. I mean, like, and having, and like, that's why I really wanted to share, like, having gone through the donor, we have this little 7-month-old little baby. She's like a dream. I mean, it's just an absolute dream. It really is, to go through, yeah, like I said, pregnancy, and our delivery was kind of crazy, but then to have this little, oh my God, she's like an angel. She's just, I say she's delicious.
Yes. And she is worth everything that you went through and everything, frankly, Kelly, that you became.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I agree. And that's like another, your program is and you were so amazing, because it's like, I knew I was a shell of myself when I entered your program. And it's like, I need to be there for my baby when they come. Like, I can't be I can't be a mother like this. This is not the type of mother I want to be. And yeah, and I will say, like, it's been so, it's been amazing. And it's yeah, I just, more amazing than I ever dreamed. You don't know what it is going to be like, because you've never done it before. But
Right.
yeah.
Well, I just love your story and your generosity in sharing it here, because I mean, one of my own personal missions is to really help women get over the fucking stories that we tell about what our family has to be, and all of the judgments and all of the things we scare ourselves with, whatever means by which we become moms. We make, some things more meaningful than others, and this is better than that. And it's based on nothing.
Yeah.
It's based on your self-sabotage story. And I just, you're such a prime example of this, Kelly, about making a choice to focus on the dream or focus on your fear. Because if you let fear dictate this to you, you'd be, I don't know, still talking like you were going to travel. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
I mean, can you imagine?
No. And it, like, yeah, that scares me to think of, like, my God, what if I gave up, and because it really, and I'm not saying it wasn't easy. I mean, it's when you want to be a mom, and it's like, there's this void there really is a void in your life, and you have to just keep pushing forward. And it's really hard. It is, but every day you just have to tell yourself. And that's why I think what you kind of, the structure is so important, like to put that in place, like, for almost for a year, I got up at the same time every day, meditated. And it's like, it really does give you this like kind of structure to hang on to. And it really makes a huge difference. And I will say I don't do as much of it now, but
you got to run around after. Well, she's not quite walking yet at 7 months, but just think about it. I mean, think about where you were when you started, and think about where, when you ended the program in January of 2020, and then where you were, a year later. It's insane.
It is. And it was even when I entered the program in January, it's like, I wasn't 100%. I definitely had a lot more work to do, but I had the tools to do it. And I had the strength and like belief in myself to do it. And it was because you basically teach us to like name your fears and know them. It's like, you can then see them coming from a mile away. You really can. You're like, I'm like, that's creeping up. Like, I'm not going to go down that. I'm not going to go down that path. I'm going to do this instead. And, you really, it's just, and now, even though, like I said, I'm not meditating as much as I want to, or journaling, but it's like my mind, it's like, you almost know what to look out for. And you're like, you have the tools to kind of, to not let yourself go down those paths. Yeah,
Right.
no, yeah, it's amazing. And I like, I taught my husband the same. Everybody has their own. A lot of his are around, work and business. And like, whenever he would talk about things, I'd be like, I think that's the story you're telling yourself and your saboteur. And he's just like, oh, you're
So
crazy.
shut up, Rosanne. Yeah, I love that, Kelly. So, as we close this out, I would love to know, like, think about the woman who was listening to these podcasts when before you called your daughter in, what would you want the women listening to know? What do you most want them to walk away with from this particular conversation?
Probably a couple of things. Like I mentioned before, accepting where you are. I think that's super important, because if you're constantly looking back or comparing, like you said, this is not how I I thought it would, I didn't think I'd be here. I had this different vision for myself, but what your family planned. If you don't accept where you are and like what your kind of new path is, or set that new path, I don't think I don't see how you can move forward. I feel like you'll just be paralyzed, like you'll just never get going. And then keep on living your best life, I think, is one of the best. Like I said, I kind of took that from a story you had told during one of the podcasts, like, and you don't realize, I think a lot of women fall into that trap where your whole life goes on hold because you get so consumed with this, and then you stop. Fear takes over every part of your life. It's not just this part of trying to have a baby. It's like, oh, you pass up a promotion at work because, oh, you don't think you're good enough for that anymore, or whatever it is. You stop meeting up with friends, you stop doing things you enjoy. So that was a huge wake up call for me. So I think that is probably one of the best pieces of advice, is keep living your best life while you're on this journey. Don't say no to the thing, because that's what will get you through. That's the good stuff that keeps getting you through. And then, I guess, by the time it will happen, when you get your dream baby, then your life kept moving forward with it. Like, you have this life to welcome this, beautiful baby into. You're not still stuck in the muck.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you shared that you guys were like, yeah, we're going to build a home. And, it's so important because, being the woman that calls in this baby, I always tell women, I'm like, look, if you're dead inside, it's really hard to call in a life. And people don't
Absolutely.
want, so many people think they can get around that. Oh, well, I don't have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, the work is what keeps you going. And the work is what gets you out of your own way.
Yep, absolutely.
And having
100%.
the strength to keep going comes from having a life worth living, build the house, buy the car, get the education,
Yep.
It's about doing both. Remember, yes. I'm trying to conceive and I have a life. You can have both.
Yes, absolutely. And there was even a point where, like, should we be building this house? Like, our fears were starting to, because we're thinking we're going to build a house and not have any kids to fill it up with. And it's like, we can't.
Absolutely not.
Yes, exactly. So we even had to, conquer those fears as we were going through the process. And of course, now we're like, can you imagine if we never did this? Like, look at where we are now,
Dude.
So,
regret is the most expensive thing there is. And everybody thinks they're going to cheat regret. You won't. It will always find you. And this is why I'm just so honored, Kelly, and this whole audience is so blessed. in hearing your story, because your story is a story of triumph, not one of regret. Like who you became in this process to love yourself and love your vision enough to say, okay, I'm going to scrap that idea. I know what I want. I know what's true in my heart. I'm not going to let some crazy story get in the way of the love I have to share and the baby that I know is out there for me. I mean, it's just extraordinary. So I'm so happy for you and your husband and your beautiful baby daughter. You know, I had the good fortune of seeing her picture. I mean, dude, you did good, mama. You did good. And thank you for sharing your story here. And I know that you're going to be blessing so many women by sharing this. So thank you so much for your generosity, your honesty, and, you know, that steady-handed story of the woman who knew what she wanted and kept going. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rosanne.
You're so welcome.
Love this episode of the Fearlessly Fertile podcast? Subscribe now and leave an awesome review. Remember, the desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for you. When it comes to your dreams, keep saying hell yes.